so the whole idea of this standard is we're looking at leadership strategies so that our group can function properly, okay? The name of the standard is called Safety Through Leadership. So what we're doing is we're making sure that we're using our leadership before the camp, during the camp, so that safety and risk factors are taken care of so that everybody can participate to their full, and therefore if that's happening, the group should function properly. Okay, and we looked at what a group that's functioning looks like, sounds like, and feels like yesterday. Alright? So when we're always looking back and saying, is my leadership working in terms of improving the function of the group, we're referring back to that looks like, sounds like, feels like. And if it is getting some of those things, we are using our leadership well. But we have to understand, before we even go any further, what risk management is. So risk management, can you scroll down to number 3, please? This is what it is. Risk is the potential to lose or gain something of value, and it includes real, perceived, and residual risk. What it is about is managing risk is about allowing gain to occur through challenge that has risk. So mountain biking, when we stood in that line yesterday, most of us were over this end of the room because we hadn't done mountain biking on a trail before. Okay, so automatically there's inherent risk there. Okay, there's a real chance that someone could lose something, i.e. injury, they could feel unsafe, therefore if they feel unsafe they're not going to participate, and they lose the chance to gain the experience and the confidence that comes from mountain biking. Okay? Can you scroll down to the next one, please? Okay, so actually we'll scroll down, keep scrolling down. So the first thing we've got to do when we are leading before the camp is we've got to identify risk. Okay? And we should always do that before we carry out the activity. However, on the day, there's going to probably be some things that crop up that we haven't thought about, and that's okay, but it's how we use our leadership to identify that risk while it's happening, and then also at the same time work together using leadership to try and minimise that risk so we can carry on. Okay? Scroll down. When we're identifying risk, there's 3 causal factors. It can come from people, it can come from the equipment that we're using, or it can come from the environment that we're in. Okay? So obviously the people, us, the equipment is obviously going to be the mountain bike, it's going to be the luges, it's going to be the things like our water bottles. All of those things come under the equipment. Alright? You could pack all your water, then you get out there and you didn't realise that you hadn't put the lid on properly, or the lid's faulted, or your water's leaked. Okay, so that's another example of an equipment risk. And the environment obviously is the track. That's why I showed you yesterday the video of the mountain biking area that we're going to be in, so you get an idea of the environment they're going to be in. And some of the things you identified as uneven tracks, gravel, trees. We looked at things like the temperature. It's going to be cold up there, etc., etc. Could even be wet, sludgy, all those things. Okay, so if we scroll down, so this is people. Okay, so the person is individual, right? So they can be risks, it can be other people, or it can be yourself. All right. So the mere fact that we haven't mountain biked before, we are now a risk. Okay, it's not a bad thing, it's just a risk that we've identified. Okay, help is involved in the activity, and what I mean by that, you could probably put my other teammates, poor understanding of the activity or instructions. Okay, so we haven't really had much experience there, so therefore you would hope that we're listening closely to instructions. But sometimes we know that some people's ears are painted on some of the time and they don't listen, right? So how as my leadership am I going to make sure that I communicate effectively so that I can maximise the chance that people are going to understand? Medical problems. There will be people in this rupu that have got medical problems that we need to take into consideration. Behavioural problems, poor ratios and poor choices. So somebody's going to make a poor choice on the thing, right? It just depends on how poor that choice is and what we do about it. And in fact, I'd be disappointed if someone doesn't make a poor choice. It's just that that what we call manage risk. Okay, I don't want you going off a 25-foot cliff if you have no idea what you're doing, but I do want you to try and do a little jump if you feel like you can get there. Okay? Because what you'll see that there will be along the ways, there will be little man-made features. What I mean by that is little jumps, little kind of bridges that you can go across. I want you to, within your own confidence, to try those things. All right? But you've got to make that choice. It's what we call challenge by choice. Okay, scroll down. Equipment. So, obviously, the cars and the transport teachers will take care of that. Equipment, so bikes, drink bottles, first aid kits. You get out there and you open the first aid kit and it hasn't got the thing that you need the most. Right? It hasn't got plasters, or it hasn't got something to hold up a shoulder when they've dislocated their shoulder when they come off a bike. All of those little things which can become equipment. All right? Poor or inadequate clothing. Right? So you bring a thermal, okay, and quite often we see this. You bring a thermal or bring a jacket and you think, oh yeah, it's waterproof and it's a little thin parka. Right? So it might stop wind, but it's not going to stop water. So it's those sorts of things that we need to plan for, and also try and adapt to if it happens. Inadequate food, drink with participants, and no maps. Okay, so that's equipment. Scroll down, please, thank you. And the environment, obviously those things. Weather changes, dangerous out of bounds areas, tracks poorly posted, wild animals, dense bush, poor visibility. All of those things could come into play while we're away. All right? Scroll down again, please, Ash. The final thing we need to think about is there's different categories of safety. There's our physical safety. So that's our safety to our physical well-being. So that could be injury. Then there's emotional safety. Okay, so emotional safety is having the ability, if we scroll down again please, if you have a look at this one here, is the ability or safety of our emotional well-being. When our leadership is good through risk management, a person will feel that the risk of an activity is acceptable to their emotional well-being. So what I mean by that is people will be scared, okay? And it's okay to be scared, but it's what we do with our leadership to try and help those people with their fear to turn that into confidence to be able to do the activity that we're doing. Okay, all right? Cultural safety. Okay, so cultural safety is a bit of a hard one to define, but basically everybody in the group should feel safe to be themselves and who they are and what they need. All right? So one example is, and I hate this, is that there's different sexualities amongst the group. And I hate that word when people use gay as a put down. I hate that word. Because what you're doing is you are, whether or not you think it or not, potentially making their identity of who they are a negative thing. So you're not going over Jane, well, don't be gay, go and do it. It's a horrible put down, all right? So it's those sorts of things around cultural safety that can lead to emotional safety, right, that we need to be taking care of. Okay, so scroll down, okay? So what I want us to do now is I'm going to give you a sheet of paper in your groups, and I want you to draw up a quick grid like this, and we're going to do this properly with a proper template, but I just want us to start brainstorming what are going to be some of the risks that people are going to pose, what are some of the risks that equipment is going to pose, what are some of the risks that environment is going to pose. So I just want like a couple of words each thing, okay? All right? Cool? Sweet, so go back to your groups, I'll give you a sheet of paper.